Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this LinkedIn Live event, the last one of 2021, and on an extremely relevant topic for the time being, dealing with global supply chain chaos. So I am here with two amazing procurement experts that will help us to understand a bit more about what is going on for the time being and what can we expect in the future. Now, as usual, before, I'm going to ask Laurence and Luigi to introduce themselves. But before we do that, we want to have a bit more of an idea about the audience, about the people that are with us today to listen more. So how about, it's a global supply chain chaos. Are we going to have people from different countries that want to understand what is going on for the time being? How about take your chat and tell us from where you are listening to this LinkedIn Live event? Then we get a bit of an idea about the global presence that we have for this event. So you have on the right side the possibility to post a comment. So over there, you can just tell us where are you based right now, so that we can get a better idea about who is with us today. And as we go for before as we wait for the new people to join and connect to the LinkedIn Live, how about having a quick introduction of our two speakers? Laurence, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you, Giuseppe, for inviting me, and thank you for qualifying us as amazing procurement experts. My name is Laurence Pérot. I am located in Switzerland, and I have been in various roles in the past 20 years at Logitech in procurement, mainly actually during 15 years in sourcing components and strategic technologies, and in the last 5 years dealing with supply chain services sourcing.
Great. Thank you, Laurence. And Luigi.
Thank you, Giuseppe, for the invitation also from my side. I'm Luigi Staccoli. I'm based in Switzerland, in Geneva, and I am currently responsible for the global procurement for MSC Cargo. I have more or less 20 years experience in procurement. I started with the automotive industry in 2002 with Bridgestone in various procurement roles, and then I moved still in the automotive industry in Pirelli in 2010, holding the position of CPO also in Pirelli. And then I moved to the shipping industry about 3 years ago, a little less than 3 years ago, and I am now in the role of the Chief Procurement Officer of MSC Cargo.
Okay, amazing. Then, you have a double role, right? You're a procurement professional trying to get the supply chain working, and at the same time, you're working for one of the very largest shipping company in the world. Okay, maybe we will use this double hat in a moment. But maybe Luigi, I'm going to start with you. How did we get to the current situation?
That is an excellent question that, it has a lot of different reasons for the current situation, which created actually a perfect storm, and that now is lasting not short. It's several months that we are in the current situation. So the one of the main reasons is that when the pandemic started, a lot of container capacity has been scrapped. In any case, this was a container capacity that was supposed to be scrapped in the following year, but the pandemic has just accelerated the process. Normally, the way this is done is that you scrap while you create additional capacity. While scrapping is an immediate process, creating an additional capacity through the new builds, it takes 2-3 years. So as soon as the situation slightly improved, even if we are still in the pandemic situation, then the economic demand started to pick up. A lot of governments, especially in the United States, have started to flood the market with a lot of cash that increase the demand suddenly, and also is increasing inflation. I mean, I've seen the latest statistics where it seems that in the United States, the last quarter, the inflation will be 9%, something that has not been seen for the past decades, And when you have the demand peak is very fast, then the supply chain follow with a certain delay. And this is where we are today, that at the end there has been a lot of demand, the capacity has not been able to catch up. It takes normally 2-3 years to catch up. Now the order on the shipyard is full. The first vessels on the new order will be delivered in 2022. So we expect that already 2022 there will be some additional capacity there. In the meantime, considering that the United States demand is so high, then a lot of capacity has been diverted to the United States, and this has had a double effect. From one side, has reduced the capacity for the other trades, so you have less capacity going to Europe, for example. And then I'm sure that a lot of people that is in this looking at this LinkedIn Live based in Europe are experiencing a shortage of container slots on several carriers. On the other side, there is a congestion at the Europe and the US ports. Just a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to speak with someone at the Long Beach port, and this guy told me, even if we stop today, the vessel arriving at the Long Beach port, we will need 3 months to solve all the congestion. And this is a situation that is very common in all the ports. So as we speak, we are in a situation where we are, I wouldn't say stuck, but at least there are still a lot of bottlenecks that will probably last for the next months.
Wow, that's Laurence, anything else that you want to add from your perspective, or that's pretty much is also your view on the situation?
Yeah, no, I think this is a perfect summary of what happened. I also share Luigi's views on the outlook for next month, right? It's not that rosy, and it is still going to be difficult next year.
Okay. But Laurence, how did you tackle the situation?
Yeah, that's also a very interesting question. So, Luigi was mentioning a perfect storm for the sequence of events last year. And in the company, at Logitech, we also had this perfect storm, like probably many other companies at the start of the COVID crisis. We had, most of our production in Asia, and therefore a freeze in production for several weeks. At the same time, this was coupled to a big surge in demand because everybody obviously wanted exactly with a
Logitech.
Thank you, Giuseppe, for the advertisement. So obviously we had a big surge in demand on all working from home accessories. So we had really issues to struggle with a boom in demand. And third, we had also obviously to tackle the big freight disruptions, and we couldn't actually have access as we wanted to expedite modes because everything was actually absorbed by COVID related materials at the time. So yeah, it's been quite a challenge. And what we did is first of all to actually focus a task force in the sourcing team to cope with the situation. We pulled the resources from various organizations, and within the team we actually dedicated a specific task force to cope with this. And but most importantly, we actually stuck to our partners, right? It is actually in those difficult times that you actually see the value of the partnerships you have been developing and building over the years. And I must say, last year our partners were really amazing in trying their best to support us and to tackle the unprecedented situation with us.
Okay, perfect. So you experience a good collaboration with the people that have been working with you for a long time, despite the challenging situation. Now, by the way, I want to say one thing to the audience. Now, this is your LinkedIn Live, so you can ask all the questions that you want. And let's take the opportunity now that we have Laurence and Luigi with us today. that can help us, to understand more what has happened. But if I may, let's talk also about the future. I mean, what should we expect in the coming months, Laurence?
Well, so as we were pointing out, it is not going to be any better, right? I think all industry leaders concur, actually all the information we have on hand concurs, unfortunately, to actually reach this conclusion. There is still, and there will still be a lot of disruptions in freight, mainly. The capacity is still not meeting demand. There are still lots of COVID uncertainties, and you see, right, with the recent Omicron outbreak that here and there it creates all of a sudden new regulation changes, etc. Lots of uncertainties as well from Asian countries where most of the industries are located for manufacturing. So far we have seen that, for example, China has been extremely tough in responding to any new COVID outbreak, right? They do not hesitate to take very strong measures when identifying a couple of COVID cases, like, it happened in some Chinese ports a few months ago. They shut down immediately the whole port, or actually the whole Shanghai airport, right? So for just a few COVID cases identified, so there is a zero tolerance in China on this, and it can create all of a sudden a big domino effect on a very fragile situation.
Okay, so it may even get worse than it is today, or
I don't think it could get worse. And Luigi, please feel free to chime in anytime. But what I'm saying here is that we don't expect a lot of relief until 2023 overall.
Wow. Okay, Luigi, what are your views? I mean, what should we expect in this 2022 then?
Allora, I agree with Laurence. We don't expect short-term improvements, not even worsening of the situation, but definitely not improvements. You have to consider that from the container slot point of view, then you need additional capacity coming into the market. And this will come partially in 2022, but the majority will come in 2023. But then, even if you solve the problem there, then you have a backlog congestion at the port that has to be solved, and this will take time in any case to be solved. What Laurence is mentioning about problems in specific port, like Chinese ports, is a real threat, especially for us. I mean, when I was in the automotive industry, my plants were stuck in a place, and then I have to manage the supply chain in those ports. In this case, my plants are moving every single day, and I have a different supply chain per port every single day. And then I have to manage in each single port, and we have more than 500 ports that we call. So you can understand that in each port, for me, is a challenge to supply the vessels to keep them in operation. In the case of China, this is crazy. In the port of Ningbo, one COVID case, port closed, no supplies allowed to the vessels, and this is eventually a threat that can also jeopardize the supply to the vessels and also the operativity of the vessel. So this is to say that I expect the situation to remain as it is, at least for the first half next year. Probably second half will start easing a little bit, but the real improvement will be evident only from 2023.
Okay, well, yeah, it doesn't look easy. By the way, I remind you, our audience, let's say, if there is something more specific, if there is a specific challenge that you are facing, then don't hesitate to ask it. If I may, Luigi, I want to take advantage of the fact that you are the CPO and an employee of MSC Cargo. So, how did you manage your supply chain? I mean, are you in the same situation as the rest of the world, or is a bit different?
Allora, I'm completely in the same situation. I have no advantages there. You know, no, allora, we are managing, compared to, again, to my past experience, I'm managing completely different business model, because in this business model, I have two main areas that I have to tackle. One is the supply chain on fixed asset, and another one is the supply chain on moving assets. And for the two type of business, we have implemented completely different approach. In the case of the moving assets, which are the vessels, I also have a responsibility, because at the end, if I make not a decent job, I also risk the operativity of the vessel and to worsen even more the current situation. At the end, we are now the number one carrier in the world, and therefore, if we create a problem, we create a big problem to the entire supply chain.
Yeah, of
And that is
course.
also a responsibility. In order to overcome this, as I told you, we have more than 500 ports that we call. Then I have selected the key ports, and in each key port we have selected partners that are keeping stock for us for the critical commodities that are enabling us the vessel to operate. This is for all the type of commodities, especially for the one that are critical for the vessel operation. I make an example: the spare parts for the engine or the magnesium for the scrubber. Here we work on a partnership base. We have a strategic port, Singapore, Antwerp, that we use as a hub, where we have a strategic stock for us ready made for the supply to the vessels. In the case of the fixed asset, like the ports, for example, then what we have used is diversification. So we are not putting a lot of eggs in our basket, but we are diversifying geographically, and while we are standardizing what we buy, and we try to have the network that is good enough in order to overcome a problem on logistic, a problem on COVID situation, on eventually import duties, entry barriers, and so on. It's not perfect yet, but and we have given the priority to the vessels, of course, rather than the fixed asset. But so far, so good. I mean, we have not had many disruption on the operation of the vessel, and we are operating at full speed at the moment.
Okay, well, we have a lot of questions, so why don't we see some of them, because there are a lot of great ones. This one comes from Ron. How do you see localization going forward, producing locally rather than in Asia? And is there a bullwhip effect where demand is amplified? And if yes, could we flip to a situation of extreme oversupply in the future? Great question.
Yeah, so maybe I'll try to answer first. So a localization going forward, potentially yes. I think I have been connecting with quite a few companies thinking of those plans, right? So I think overall this COVID experience and the significant supply chain disruptions have brought some light to to industry leaders on the need to do scenario planning, to be more predictable, and also to have contingency plans. So here in this respect, I understand that quite some organizations are actually looking into partially, a partial contingency plan with maybe more localized productions in various parts of the world.
Yeah, I understand, yeah. Great. Let's listen to the question from Sven. Graduating, getting his executive MBA next Friday, right, in Lausanne. So not this one, the one on next week. Sven, he asked, will the land transportation via Eurasian Union be an alternative?
So here, I'm not fully clear what we mean with land transport via Eurasian Union. Are we talking about the Silk Road?
Maybe should I ask Sven, to clarify, to give us a bit more details? And in the meantime, we go to the question from another procurement executives. Let's listen to Tony. Tony says, question to Laurence. You mentioned that you organize your team. Was this part of a planned approach through a playbook or a reaction to the situation? Second question, have you always looked into updated risk management approach?
Yeah, so it was absolutely not, through a playbook at all. I had no such plans, and I had not planned this. It was, when I was actually, thinking, saying it was a perfect storm on top of the situation we were living. Actually, I had one of my, freight team member who was missing. I was actually rehiring somebody at the time, so it was really a difficult situation, but in the end, right, you need to react fast, and when you see that you need to pull resources, you actually can focus immediately on what needs to be done, right? Because you switch from a normal situation to a very tactical focus on various elements, and you actually deploy resources differently. Regarding the second question, so an updated risk management approach. It's an interesting question, because here again, right, so the COVID situation has made us all understand that we need to have more scenario planning. It's actually a different approach to risk management. Risk management is a very vast topic, by the way. It is actually difficult to predict the unpredictable. But I believe that scenario planning here is actually one of the best way to develop strategy, to become more resilient, and at least to be a bit better prepared to this type of twists in the future.
Thank you.
Luigi, any thoughts, or by the way?
Allora, on this point, yes, we have remade our risk management analysis because I have to admit that we were not ready at all before this kind of situation. And going back also to the previous question, some time ago there was a very common word in the economic community that was globalization. So it was global and local. It was a mix of the two, and this is something that was not brought forward, but I believe that this will be done in the next future, especially for critical commodities. So most probably this will come from an analysis of risk management that all the companies have to do in this moment, and they have to decide what is critical for them and how to overcome in case of this situation reoccurring.
Yeah, thank you. Remember, we were talking about land transportation, and indeed Sven clarifies that we are talking about the train by the Silk Road. Now, is that an alternative?
Yeah, well, it's been an alternative for us. I mean, we've been using this for quite a number of years already, way before the COVID, right? So rail is definitely has been a success story from Asia into Europe. It has been less of a success story, I must say, in the recent months, because obviously the boom in demand and the supply chain disruption had domino effects on various other modalities. It means that it congested the rail. Chinese authorities had also to take very strict measures, sometimes to close platforms and to close accesses. Plus, also the crossing of borders has been difficult sometimes due to COVID outbreaks in certain regions of this area. So it remains a very strong and robust solution, but it is also impacted like all the modalities today. Train is one option. We have also seen, you may have heard of it as well, with trucking, right? There have been quite a lot of options put in place by freight forwarders to actually do the same road, but by cross-border trucking.
Mm-hmm. I see. There is a more general question. Does the just-in-time concepts are any good?
That's a very interesting question, right? I think we have shifted our mindset from, just in time to just in case something happens, right? So it's very different mode right now. Luigi?
Yeah. Luigi, I think you agree, right? You know,
Fully
it's
agree.
be challenging to do just in time.
Today, the just in time is not in time. So it's not the right moment to pursue a just in time. And by the way, just in time was built and created by automotive industry. I believe that they are not really working on just in time today. So it's not really the right concept at the moment.
Yeah. Let's get a question from Fernando from Brazil. I mean, any comments on the expected effects of the Chinese New Year and the Winter Olympic Games coming soon in China for your supply chain?
Allora, from my side, I already see that. I mean, even the frequent electricity outage that you have in China are instrumental to prepare for the New Year's Eve, because they are making in stock all the potential power generation in order to be sure that they will give the right image to the world during the World Olympics in February. So I have already seen a lot of delays from the manufacturing in China in preparation of the World Olympics, of the Olympic Games that will be held in February. And then on the logistic, any disruption, of course, yes, but this is there every year, and it's normally done much before the Chinese New Year, because everybody shipped much before than that. So you are already seeing the effect as we speak.
Yeah. By the way, Fernando, you're misleading us. You know, you tell us that you're from Brazil, but the photo doesn't seem to be the typical image of Brazil that we imagine, right? You know, but okay, thank you for your question. Let's listen to another bright procurement person, Anne-Marie. So Anne-Marie is telling us, how are you communicating to internal and external clients where there are no option but to increase in price and cost? And of course, mitigate as much as possible. And are there any key learning or suggestion on how to best communicate it? How are the messages being received? Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Maybe I'll try. So, it's actually not my role, fortunately, to communicate to our customers, right, about prices, right? We have already a lot on our plate to tackle the situation on the procurement side. So, so I can't really speak to this. I understand some organizations do not have any other options that indeed passing on the additional cost to their customers. But there are also some other ways to tackle this, right? So of course, collaboration with customers, but also I believe looking at supply chain efficiencies on both sides to see how the customer and supplier can team up together to actually get the best savings on considering the situation.
Yeah. Luigi, is there something that you're doing on the communication side, especially talking with management to make them understand? I mean, probably the task is a bit easier for you since you're very much into the field, so everybody knows the situation. But any insight for Anne-Marie?
In reality, there are two effects here. That is not only the freight cost, but it's also the raw material cost that is increasing. So, of course, the freight cost I don't need to answer or to explain internally, but definitely the impact of the raw material cost, yes, and also the availability. So we buy a lot of steel, for example, and this is definitely an headache. I have to tell you that I have a very interactive discussion since a few months with my management, because of course they want to understand where the impact of the costs are going and why we are in a current situation from the raw material point of view. So in reality, to answer to Anne-Marie question, every organization is different, and I've seen in the three organizations I've been working for, and recently what I'm doing is really to explain from the market perspective what is happening, and then I'm benchmarking a lot based on what also other people in the industry are experiencing, or other industries are experiencing as well. So I cannot be more helpful than this, unfortunately. But I mean, there is a level of understanding, of awareness inside the organization now that was not there more than 1 year ago.
Yeah. I mean, my 2 cents, Anne-Marie, on this topic, I think there is a communication that should come also from top management, right? Describing, the overall situation, so that somehow this is cascaded down to the different internal stakeholders that are impacted by those kind of things. So, the building blocks, like, the global supply chain, the raw material situation, so that then is not up to each buyer to have to explain exactly the same thing, but somehow, you have a one-pager that can help you in that respect. And drop me a line if you want a few hints in that respect. There is, the idea of the raw material price increase, is coming up also in the comment from Philippe. The semiconductor shortage situation may also be an opportunity for some supplier to increase their pricing. Without an open book policy, how can you justify or question those increases?
Well, without open book or with open book, you can always challenge and justify, right? It's quite important to understand, how the market is driving those increases, the cost drivers, and you can determine whether the magnitude of the increase is actually justified, or if your supplier would try to take advantage. Interestingly, today, right, we have well, here we're talking about semiconductors actually, but we have never seen so high prices for such a low performance overall. When you think of it, right, it's actually a very interesting situation.
Yeah. Okay. Now, again, the raw material price increase, which by the way was the topic of our previous LinkedIn Live. So we have done a previous LinkedIn Live on the raw material price hike, and we went more in details into this topic. Again, it dropped me a message on LinkedIn if you're interested to get access to the recording of our previous event on raw materials. I will be happy to share it with you. Just send me a quick message. But let's take this question from Canan. Is there an increase in commodity price raw material due to discounts, lengthy transportation? What is the price impact in percentage? Will this rise in price diminish in 2023 when the chaos is eliminated gradually? Of course, difficult to give a reply which applies to all kind of commodity, but maybe you can share some insights.
So, if I may, I will start. Yes, there is an impact on the price of the raw materials due to the logistic bottlenecks, and this is both for the cost and the availability, of course. The impact is impossible to say as one recipe that fits all, because it depends on a lot of things. On which commodity, from where to where, which is the supply and demand situation for that commodity, and so on. Having said that, yes, I hope and I believe that the price will in any case go back to a more acceptable situation in 2023. You have probably seen. This was an interesting story that the Fed has been telling for 1 year, the story that the inflation is temporary. Last week they came out with the latest report on their meeting, the monthly meeting, and the temporary inflation sentence disappeared suddenly. So they realized that it's something that is lasting too long, that they were not credible enough, and I'm expecting that now they will increase the rates in 2022 to cool down a little bit the economy. So this will have definitely an impact on the price. That will go back to an acceptable level, because the target of 2% of inflation now is very, very far away.
Yeah, indeed. There is another comment from Philippe. Is the current shortage situation commonly recognized as being a force majeure situation. Not sure if you have any experience on that.
Well, force majeure, no, today it's not really a force majeure, right? So last year actually, so force majeure is used for as a contractually to actually by some suppliers to actually admit that they cannot honor the contracts, the conditions which have been agreed. And indeed, we saw that last year at the beginning of the COVID situation back in March, April last year, specifically on air, because air rates were skyrocketing at the time due to the big demand for COVID material, obviously, and half of the flights worldwide were grounded, by the way. So yeah, so it is sometimes used by some suppliers who cannot really cope with the situation and who cannot honor the contracts. But today, I don't think it is the case.
Yeah, I agree. This has happened last year to me as well. And in some cases, this supplier, because the force majeure has a legal implication, they have to put every customer on allocation. And so it has a legal implication there. So I received some information from specific suppliers that said that they could not honor, as Laurence said, their commitment, and it was a solution of force majeure. But normally, what some people tend to do is that they tend to prioritize the customer where they have the highest margin, and then sometimes they tend to hide behind the force majeure situation. So what has happened is that last year I asked them, okay, can you please issue a letter on the force majeure? And nobody came out with this letter because they know that there's a legal implication. So there are some cases of utilizing a force majeure as a tactic there, but it happened at the beginning of this problem and not now.
Yeah, great. By the way, the tip about asking the supplier to issue it, so that then you see whether they're serious or whether they're just pretending or using it as an argument. Yeah, excellent. Now, in something which is so physical, like the freight transportation, are there some technology solution which can assist in resolving the challenge? Are the existing solution adequate to solve the problem?
So, Luigi, do you want to take that one, or
Yeah.
shall I?
Allora, here we have one of the big problems that we, in any case, will remain even after the bottleneck has been resolved is the capacity on the infrastructure. So there, the efficiency is the key. And today we have several places in the world where the infrastructure are not enough in order to cope with the increasing demand, or to not to cope with the volume in game. So today there are several solutions that are under analysis at the port level and are also under testing at the port level to increase this efficiency and this capacity. Because in any case, the bottlenecks at the port, the congestion at the port will remain, even if there will be more container slots available. Nothing has been really implemented in an industrial way. Everything is in testing, but definitely there will be technologies that will help to increase efficiencies and eventually will support the operation, making sure that the situation we are now will not be so serious in the future.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Well, I think the question of Xinyan was already answered. I think they said, you already mentioned it before. Okay, as the Fed increased the interest rate, this should come down the impact on the raw material price. That's what Luigi had mentioned before. So let's continue with, thank you, Xinyan. Let's continue with Durkesh. How can we improve the techniques of benchmarking to do market study in depth effectively to understand the global supply chain? Okay, how can we improve the techniques of benchmarking to do market study in depth effectively? I'm not sure I am getting the question. I don't know if you are, then you can answer. Otherwise, we ask Durkesh to give us some more insight. Do you understand it or?
Not clearly, so would be
Not
better.
clearly. I mean, I think, Durkesh, if you could tell us a bit more, that will help us to make sure that we really answer your question rather than answering the wrong one. Okay. Now, Matthias, another procurement executives, force majeure depends on the law you used. It is defined. I will just challenge the force majeure letter with your contract and law used. Great topic.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And we normally tend to start always from our contract draft that always specify the jurisdiction we would like to have in the contract. That is also why it's important to have the right jurisdiction, because at least you know what ball game you are playing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it all depends. You have been able to negotiate. I agree. It's also usually well defined, but it all depends on what you have been able to negotiate beforehand in your contracts.
Yeah. And there is another question still from Matthias, a passionate learner and a regular participant to our LinkedIn Live. And although, it builds with some of the topics that we already covered in one of the previous answer, I still want to take this one, because I wonder if we talk about the global supply chain things that we are mainly doing because of savings, is there an idea to go back to local sourcing? Okay, we already talked about this, but here is the spin of Matthias' question, respecting our sustainability target. I mean, because big boats, plane and train will never solve the carbon, and train will, with big boats, planes and train, we will never solve the carbon footprint topic. Well, maybe with trains a bit more, but local storage not included. I mean, here we are, the comment of Matthias is more taking the climate perspective, right? Now, is there any corporate social responsibility initiative inside your company? Is there something that somehow, of course, not a question for Luigi because you are into the boat business, but more a question for Laurence. I mean, is there any reflection in this respect? And is this compatible with a fast-moving kind of activity like the technology business where you are in?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I do think it's compatible. It is actually driven from the top, right? I mean, those commitments and those sustainability strategies must come from, must be driven by the CEO, right? It is actually the case for us. We, as a company, we have taken pretty strong and strict commitments on meeting actually the Paris deal, the Paris agreement on climate. We have taken commitments to use a share of recycled material in our products. We have also created packaging to and we are transparent on the score of the products, showing how sustainable they are on the packaging. So we have taken a lot of commitments, and we are actually moving forward on this, trying to actually contribute to this very important topic. So I really do believe it is compatible, although sometimes, yes, you may think, well, we are using transportation to planes and trains, as Matthias is mentioning. But at the same time, we're also driving a lot of sustainability strategies in all our organization, including supply chain, including transportation, contract logistics, warehousing, etc.
Yeah, certainly the climate change is a big topic, and maybe it could be one of the topics for one of the forthcoming LinkedIn Live, so that we can go more in depth into this topic and get a different perspective on this. I think, we had an amazing list of questions, and I'm happy that you took advantage of the presence of Laurence and Luigi to get additional insights. And certainly for me, it was a real pleasure to benefit from your ideas, your perspective. And thank you very much, Laurence and Luigi, for being with us today. And look forward to reconnect with you all in January. That's the last LinkedIn Live of the year. So also an opportunity to wish you a Holy Christmas and a fantastic 2022 with less global supply chain chaos, although it will continue to be there, but hopefully health, joy, and happiness and success in your life. Thank you very much again for the participation to this event, and all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.